Welcome to Feminine Founder. I'm Caroline Pennington, your host. Today I have Rachel Ford Hutman with me. Rachel is the founder and CEO of Ford Hutman Media, which provides communications for the elite life sciences companies at all stages of development with a specialization in media relations, executive visibility, and thought leadership. Her clients range from venture-backed startups to large-cap public companies. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'd love to hear the story behind your career and starting Ford Hutman Media.
Absolutely. Well, I started Ford Hutman Media about 3.5 years ago. I was working at the time at IBM in an in-house role leading their communications department. And I was traveling all the time, first of all. So that was really hard. And I had a small son at the time. And I really saw a need in the market for specialization in life sciences and communications. The PR firm that we had was a very large PR firm, and they just didn't understand life sciences when I was at IBM. And so, I really saw this opportunity, and I didn't think I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know. A close friend of mine, he had a venture fund, and he really encouraged me. He said, "You've got all the relationships," and he kind of gave me the push I needed. He said, "I'll be your first client." And so when I heard that, I thought, you know what, let's give this thing a go.
I love that story because that's just a little push you needed, it sounds like, and then you've built it up to the successful company it is today.
Yeah, you really do it's a village, right? And it takes people believing in you to help you sometimes believe in yourself. And someone like him who I really respected and I knew understood the industry and also built companies and entrepreneurs, when he saw it in me, that really inspired me. I did not think it was going to be as successful as it has been. I've been incredibly blessed and fortunate, and I would also say, as you probably know, it's all of the relationships you've built over your career, right? So I've focused on life science communications now for 15 years, worked at a number of different PR firms over those years. And it's really humbling when people want to come back and work with you again from years and years ago.
So that leads me to my next question of how have you built your team up? And I want to hear all the good, bad, and the ugly with the lessons learned in the hiring department.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you all the good, bad, and the ugly. And right before we got on the recording, I was saying it's literally one of the hardest things about trying to grow. We're a boutique communications agency. We have 7 full-time employees, and we work with a lot of consultants actually around the country based on unique client needs. And deciding whether or not to bring on a full-time employee is challenging because sometimes we don't know if there's enough business there or if the skill sets match. And what we do is so specialized within communications. So I think that's part of the problem. It's just very niche. And even people that I've worked with before and I thought had the experience and we brought them in, we've found out pretty quickly they didn't have just that exact kind, because we do a lot. Being a boutique communications agency, you really do have to wear a lot of different hats. And if you're at a larger agency, you might only have to do a small subset of things. And so what we do really requires a unique skill set. And unfortunately, we've made some bad hires along the way. We've also, and as I was just telling you this, we've let people stay longer than maybe we should have because I think our own egos said we can teach them. We're really smart. If we stay with them, we can teach them. But at some point, you're just throwing what they say, good money after bad. And I do believe that people want to do good in their jobs. And I think they can tell when they're not being successful in their role. And I think it starts to just kind of deteriorate them. So I honestly have learned in my 3.5 years that it's just better to fire quickly. If it's not working, you've given them, a few chances. I think you just have to recognize that. And there's no reason to delay the inevitable.
1,000,000% hire fast, fire faster.
Yeah.
It takes a minute to learn that lesson, but it pays off in the long run. I mean, the time saved is significant when you look at it.
It's absolutely true. I think that's one of the biggest things. And I tell other entrepreneurs that when they're asking me kind of questions and things, And it doesn't make you cold-hearted, because I'm a very warm-hearted person, and I think that's why maybe too in the beginning I maybe let people stay a little bit longer, because I felt guilty or felt bad for them or something. But I genuinely believe people honestly, they appreciate it, because I think they know when it's not working. And as long as you do it respectfully and with grace, I think it's just everyone has different skills. And what we need here again is just so specialized, and if they're not getting it, they're not getting it. So that's the other thing. It's like, we can usually tell pretty quickly whether or not they're able to be coached and are learning. And unfortunately, some people are just not able to, learn this skill, and that's okay, right? That's okay, because maybe they should be doing something else that matches their skills. So you're almost freeing them up to chase that dream, because sometimes their ego can't get in the way that they don't know this job. So it's kind of freeing them up in a way. And once I changed my mindset and saw it that way, I think I've gotten better, if you can get better at letting people go quickly.
Have you found with hiring, you need to have someone with industry knowledge, or is that something that can be taught?
With the hiring person themselves?
Yes, with the person that you hire.
Yeah, I mean, it's much better if they have industry knowledge. Much, much better. When we have used inside people that aren't as familiar with certain things. For example, we were letting one of our executives who's not as familiar with PR do some of our hiring initially, at least the first round, and we just found the folks that were coming through just didn't exactly, hit the mark. And so that was challenging. So once we did actually go to an executive recruitment firm, that has helped us significantly. And the applications that came through were spot on. Spot on. And to your point, I mean, time is money in this industry. I mean, literally, that's how I make a living. So every minute matters. And it's just so much easier when you're getting applications in front of you where you can tell these people are all like, perfect.
Yep, time is money, and you may have to pay a fee with you do have to pay a fee with an agency, but it's worth every penny, because typically you have a guarantee and you at least have a relationship with that recruiting firm that if this person isn't working out, even if it's past the guarantee period, they'll work with you,
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice
Yeah,
having that.
I agree. I was a little shocked at the fees initially. I'm not going to lie. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
But once I saw the level of applications that were coming to us, I was very, very impressed. And we did find someone very quickly who did meet the mark. And they also help you. I found they helped you too with like the negotiation with the person too. So they almost worked as an intermediary that way too, which I thought was interesting.
That's always helpful, because when candidates come to employers like yourself, they maybe will give a minimum salary amount or say they need XYZ PTO or whatever, but usually there's flex there. And they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to tell you that because they don't want to show their hand, but they'll tell the recruiter that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's helpful in that part too. Is there's a gray area there, and it exists, and it's something you just have to dig into.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, we did discover that as well, and that I think was helpful too. And when you're a smaller, firm like we are, I mean, just we don't have the time as larger companies do. We don't have a whole HR department. So it's just hard to, to take the time to hire and to hire well. We really just becomes one more thing on the plate that honestly, when we're really busy, is at the bottom of the plate. So that's the other thing. It's just hard to keep it moving when we're really trying to deliver client services. So so hiring for us it's definitely a challenge for sure.
So you have a quote on your website that says, "Outstanding public relations talent and experience makes the difference." So if you could elaborate further on having the right people in the right seats.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it makes all the difference. Our executive vice president is a very good friend of mine, and her and I have worked together over 10 years. And we've worked at a number of different PR firms together. And then she actually worked in-house at Medtronic, and then I was her agency when she was there. So we've had a few different iterations of our friendship. And working with someone like her who is just a complete rock star, and just knows this industry similar to me. We balance each other really well. So I think that to me is really what makes the difference in our agency. We also both have in-house communications experience in addition to outside PR experience. So that kind of balance, I think, is what really makes our firm special. And you're getting this kind of senior level talent where other agencies often you would only get access to senior level talent, if you really need it. Most of the time, you're going to be working with more of the junior employees, and you work with us all the time. And so I think that's a serious differentiator, and our clients really appreciate that.
So what's worked best for you as you've grown so quickly in 3.5 years? What's worked best when it comes to growing and scaling your business in the talent department?
That's a spicy meatball of a question. I would say not growing too fast and really staying in our lane. We know what we're really good at. You said earlier, exactly what that is: executive visibility, thought leadership, media relations. That's really our sweet spot. And so when new clients come to us and they're just asking for something that is just outside of our wheelhouse, it can be tempting because I know we can do it, but it's just not in our sweet spot. And so I often will refer those clients out because I think what I've learned is just staying in our lane. We are so good at what we do. We're like little ninjas in there. And so I find that's when we can really deliver for our clients and where all of our expertise are. Also with life sciences, we occasionally get clients that are more tech focused with maybe like a tiny brush of life sciences. And that can be tempting because I do know technology to a point, but we're really good at life sciences. So I think that's been one of the secrets to our success, is really focusing on what we're good at, not getting sidetracked by, the bright, shiny object, no matter what it is. And really good communication across the team and working together as a team, because you really do have to trust one another, and especially being in a small team. So we have a great communication. We've got a great team across the US. And I feel like right now we finally are at like a nice spot where like all of our employees are rock stars. And that makes me feel good when I get up in the morning. Like there's no one that you have to worry about, so to speak. Because when you do have an employee that's faltering, it ends up being such a time consuming thing because you're having to pick up work they can't do correctly. You're having to rework things, micromanage more. And so it just ends up being such a drain on resources that when everyone is firing, top cylinders, it's a beautiful thing.
So what was it like growing your business throughout the pandemic after just starting it, and then coming out of the pandemic from a talent and culture and growing and keeping the wheels on the track situation? What that looked like for you?
Yeah, well, it was crazy. I will say, I started about a month before the pandemic. So right when the pandemic hit, it was pretty scary. I had a lot of meetings dry up. A lot of, obviously we didn't know what the world was going to look like. If you recall, it was just insane, right?
Yeah.
Couldn't get on planes, I mean, feel like we're going to be telling our great grandchildren this, then they're going to be like, what? Yeah, couldn't go anywhere. World shut down. Yes, so there definitely was some, fear there in the beginning, but I just kept plugging through. And then what ended up happening a few months into the pandemic is that actually healthcare and technology, what I do, became more important than ever. And we also saw a convergence of healthcare and technology in really amazing, interesting ways. So my clients started pulling me into some really fascinating COVID projects. One of the projects I worked on early on was with Verily, which is the life sciences unit actually of Google. And they were putting together a website to help with COVID testing and trying to really try to organize COVID testing and results and everything through Gmail and make it easier. And so that was a really interesting project, so I think that was really cool, was just that new projects started. It was like just a new world kind of that we hadn't expected all of a sudden happened. And then in your other question, in terms of culture, I always knew we were going to be a virtual agency. I personally love working from home and I've worked from home almost my entire career. So, and I'm based in San Diego, I should say too. So I do a lot of traveling being based in San Diego to Boston and San Francisco, New York. Those are probably my biggest cities with clients. But I knew I wanted to be virtual. So as I hire and continue to hire, that's one of the things I need to speak with people about is making sure they're comfortable in a virtual work environment, because some people want to work in an office, right? Especially the younger folks, they actually really like that office, appeal and meeting people at work and that social interaction. And I'm over that. I'm
Me too.
never I'm never going to be like Carrie Bradshaw, Sex in the City. I'm always going to be at home in the office. So that's something I ask a lot about actually in the interview process, is to make sure that they're really comfortable working from home and they have that kind of self-sufficiency too, right? Because some people aren't as self-motivated. So that's an important thing we have to kind of get through as well. And I'm starting to recognize certain people love the work from home, right? Like the parents love the work from home. But yeah, the people right out of college are a little bit more hesitant.
Okay, I love that you've embraced and even started with the virtual agency model, because clients that we work with now that mandate people come back into the office, people are calling us left and right as recruiters because they don't want to do that. Especially the more experienced, like the mid to senior level people. You're right. The younger people do like to go into the office. So that's a different ballgame. But if you want to
Yeah.
get someone who's really skilled and talented, and they don't need to be micromanaged, they're fine. But
Yes.
the employers that are mandating that they go back on site, they're losing talent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I remember, and I understand on both sides, because I do think some of the larger companies that have these big offices, they want people in them, right? They're like, I'm paying rent on this office. I want butts in seats. Um, Thankfully, I don't have that problem. But I remember when I worked in-house at IBM, and I was working virtually at the time. I was hired to work virtually, but we did have a bunch of those big offices, and they were, and this was before the pandemic, but they were trying to mandate people to come back into the office if you like resided within a certain mileage of the office, and if your original contract didn't say work from home like mine did. Oh my goodness, I remember there was just all sorts of uproar because it's just, and that was before the pandemic, because once you get comfortable to, like, I think people were working like half time in the office. It's like it's really hard, especially if you have a family, to make that switch.
Definitely. And so, last question for you. What
Mhm.
advice would you give to someone who's on the fence about going out on their own?
I would say trust your gut. You really got to trust your gut, have the confidence, talk to people that have done it before. That was the biggest thing for me, as I went to a lot of my old CEOs. And I was completely vulnerable and just said, what do I need to know? Please give me your advice. What am I not thinking of? And I have to say, Carolyn, when you go to people and ask for advice, they are so touched, and they really, really want to give their advice and help. And so I think that was where I really started kind of putting the pieces together. And a lot of the advice I received, I put into action right out of the gate. Like one of the ones I told you about, stay in your lane. That was one of the ones one of my old bosses gave me. She was like, you really have to focus. You're not a huge agency. You really got to focus on what you're good at, and you can't get distracted by the other stuff and chasing these other things down. So yeah, talk to others, and really you just got to trust your gut, and you will discover too that whole saying, leap and the net will appear. I believe that is so true. It's like you think you're about to step off this cliff, but then you realize there's just not even a cliff there at all.
I love that quote, leap and the net will appear. That's a good one.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Leap and the net will appear. Yep. My
So,
other one, I'm a big quote girl. My other favorite is, everything I want is on the other side of fear.
and fear is just in our head. It's just something made up. And so, if you can
Yeah,
overcome that, then you'll be.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Careful. I'll have you here all day with quotes. I love them.
I love it. So, as we wrap up, how can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's probably the easiest. Rachel Ford Hutman. And you can LinkedIn me there. And then feel free to check out our website. It's fordhutmanmedia.com.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.